Your Win copy just failed with access denied on a UNC path. The real culprit? WinRM's double hop limitation. Let's break down Ansible Windows automation, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. Ansible Windows automation enables idempotent, agentless configuration management for Windows environments that lack SSH. It uses the WinRM service and a suite of Win modules to manage services, packages, files, and more. The core challenge is authentication, especially when you need to access network resources from the managed host, the double hop problem. Before Ansible can manage a Windows host, you need to configure WinRM. The quickest way is to run enable PS remoting force in an elevated PowerShell. This starts the WinRM service, sets it to auto start, and creates HTTP and HTTPS listeners. For production, you need to secure it with an HTTPS listener and proper firewall rules. This PowerShell snippet creates a self-signed certificate and configures an HTTPS listener for WinRM. The certificate thumbprint is used to bind the listener. These commands open the necessary firewall ports for WinRM. Port 5985 is for HTTP, and 5986 is for HTTPS. In production, you should only allow HTTPS. This sets TrustedHosts to allow connections from any host. For security, you can specify a list of host names or IP addresses. This is a sample inventory entry for a Windows host. Note the use of Ansible connection equals winum and Ansible winum server cert validation equals ignore for self-signed certificates. Never store plaintext passwords in inventory files. Use Ansible Vault instead. Ansible supports 3 main authentication transports: NTLM, Kerberos, and CredSSP. NTLM works for workgroup and domain, but cannot delegate credentials. Kerberos is faster and more secure, but requires domain-joined hosts and time sync. CredSSP enables double hop delegation, but requires explicit enablement on the target. This playbook tests all 3 authentication protocols. It runs WinPing with each transport and displays the results. Use this to verify which protocols work in your environment. The WinRM connection plugin has several timeout variables that control how long Ansible waits for operations. For long-running PowerShell scripts, you need to increase these timeouts to avoid failures. This inventory snippet sets advanced WinRM settings for all Windows hosts. Note the increased timeouts to accommodate long-running tasks. This playbook demonstrates gathering Windows facts using the Setup module. It uses the WinRM connection with custom timeouts. The Win service module manages Windows services. It is idempotent, meaning it only makes changes if the current state differs from the desired state. You can start, stop, restart, or set the startup mode. This playbook demonstrates managing the print spooler service. It ensures it's running and set to auto-start, then stops and disables it. Finally, it retrieves the service status. The Win package module installs or uninstalls software using MSI or EXE installers. It requires a productid for idempotency. If the installer is on a network share, you may encounter the double hop problem. This playbook installs 7-zip and Notepad++ using Win package. Note the use of productid for idempotency and arguments for silent installation. The Win copy module copies files from the control node to the Windows host using SMB. For network shares, set remote SRC. Yes, but be aware of the double hop problem. This playbook demonstrates copying files to and from Windows hosts. Use WinCopy for push and fetch for pull. Ansible provides 2 modules for running commands, WinCommand and WinShell. WinCommand runs via CMD, EXE, and is faster for simple commands. WinShell runs via PowerShell and supports pipelines, variables, and complex scripts. This playbook compares WinCommand and WinShell. WinCommand runs ipconfig, while WinShell runs a PowerShell script that pings multiple computers. For complex automation, write PowerShell scripts and execute them with WinShell. Best practices include setting error action preference equals stop to catch errors, returning data as JSON, and increasing the pipeline timeout for long-running scripts. This playbook runs an inline PowerShell script to list running services and then executes an external script file. Note the use of executable, PowerShell, exe. For large-scale deployment, automate WinRM configuration using group policy or DSC. You can also use Ansible to bootstrap itself. First run with NTLM over HTTP, then switch to Kerberos over HTTPS. This playbook configures WinRM on Windows hosts at scale. It sets trusted hosts, creates an HTTPS listener, and opens the firewall port. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. When Ansible uses WinRM with NTLM or Kerberos, the credentials cannot be delegated to a second hop. So when WinCopy tries to access a file on a network share, the file server sees an anonymous request and denies access. That's the double hop problem. The root cause was that WinRM's default transport, NTLM, cannot forward credentials to a second hop. Changing the transport to CredSSP and enabling CredSSP on the target allowed credential delegation to the file server. The fix was to switch to CredSSP authentication. We set Ansible WinRM transport equals CredSSP and enabled CredSSP on the target with enable WSMan CredSSP role server. This allowed WinRM to delegate credentials to the file server, resolving the access denied error. When using WinCopy with remote SRC, yes, and a UNC path, you must use CredSSP authentication. Otherwise, the credentials are not delegated to the file server, resulting in access denied. For Kerberos to work, you must use the fully qualified domain name, FQDN, in Ansible host. Otherwise, the SBN lookup fails. Always use the FQDN like server 1 domain com. If the installer is on a network share, WinRM cannot delegate credentials by default. Use CredSSP authentication or copy the installer locally first to avoid the double hop problem. Never use Ansible password in plaintext in inventory files. Use Ansible Vault or environment variables like ANSIBLNet password to keep credentials secure. If your playbook runs a task that takes longer than 60 seconds, you'll get a timeout error. Increase Ansible WinRM operation timeout sec and related timeouts to match your longest task. Service names are case-insensitive but must match exactly. Use getService to verify the exact name. For example, spooler not spooler. WinCommand does not support PowerShell pipelines or advanced features. Use WinShell with executable, PowerShell, exe for any PowerShell scripts. Write host sends output to the information stream, not stdout. Use write output instead to capture the output in Ansible. Simply setting the transport to CredSSP is not enough. You must also enable CredSSP on the target host with enable WSMan CredSSP role server and configure group policy to allow delegation. For CredSSP to work in a domain environment, you must enable the group policy setting, allow delegating fresh credentials with NTLM-only server authentication. Under computer configuration, administrative templates, system credentials delegation. Without this, CredSSP delegation will fail even if the feature is enabled on the host. Use an initial playbook with NTLM over HTTP to configure WinRM for HTTPS and CredSSP, then switch to secure settings. This avoids manual configuration on each host. CredSSP delegates your credentials to the remote host, which can be a security risk if the host is compromised. In production, restrict delegation to specific hosts using the delegate computer parameter in enable WSMan CredSSP or via group policy, rather than using a wildcard. When troubleshooting WinRM issues, start by testing connectivity with test WSMan and checking the WinRM service. Use Ansible's verbose mode to see which transport and port are being used. Also verify firewall rules with testnet connection. Let's run through some common interview questions. What is the double hop problem? WinRM cannot delegate credentials to a second hop. Use CredSSP. Difference between WinCommand and WinShell? WinCommand uses CMD, exe, WinShell uses PowerShell. How to configure a Windows host for Ansible? Enable PS remoting, set TrustedHosts, open firewall. And a few frequently asked questions. What is the double hop problem? When you connect to a Windows host via WinRM and try to access a network resource, credentials cannot be passed to the second hop. Use CredSSP. How to find producted for Win package? Run getWMI object Win32 product on the target or check registry. Why does Win copy fail with UNC paths? Double hop problem. Use CredSSP or copy locally first. Let's recap the key takeaways. Configure WinRM with Enable PS Remoting and HTTPS. Choose Auth Protocol, NTLM, Kerberos, or CredSSP. Increase timeouts for long-running tasks. Use WinShell for PowerShell, WinCommand for simple commands. Ready to go deeper? Up next, Ansible Network Automation, then Ansible Tutorial for Beginners, then Ansible V's Terraform, when to use each, and Ansible AWX and Tower Guide. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.